Here's another episode of what it's like to go to war. And on this one, I want to talk about soldiers and society. Actually, warriors from all branches of the military and society. But you know, soldiers and society fit better. There's this relationship that I wish didn't exist, but there's no way to prevent it, of taking somebody out of society and turning them into a warrior. And there is fundamental changes that will happen turning somebody from a citizen into a warrior. But there are some things that society builds into people that just cannot be undone. And what those things, the challenges from society can sometimes make it almost impossible to create the kind of warrior that a society needs. This is the age-old dilemma of a society that wants warriors that will step up and serve them so that they don't have to, but warriors that come out of a society that doesn't have a heart or the duty or the drive to serve. And how do those two things work? Well, now let me get into the long answer to this question. You see, as a guy who spent 3 years taking warriors who just finished initial entry training and putting them through an indoctrination period, now called an assessment and selection program, getting them ready for the Ranger Regiment, what I learned during that 3-year process is 65, 75, sometimes 85% of the people that show up to this program just don't simply have what it takes to be able to serve successfully in this special operations unit. But keep in mind that the people that we were drawing from are already coming from the United States military, which is drawing people from the United States society at large. And the roles that we're drawing them from in the U.S. military are already some of the most challenging, some of the most physically difficult, some of the most intellectually demanding, meaning it takes the highest level of recruit scores, intellect scores, skills in order to be able to serve in the combat arms that we were pulling them from. The top percentage of the society were serving in the military. The top percentage of the military were serving in combat arms, and we were taking the top percentage of combat arms, and still 65, 75, in some cases 85% of the people that started this program didn't have what it takes to finish it. And that goes all the way back to society. That didn't happen because they're not as smart as the other people in our country. It didn't happen because they're not as strong as other people in our country. In fact, if you look at the way that they went from the society into the military, into combat arms, and then into special operations, assessment and selection, these were the top 1% of the 1% of the 1% of America. And still, 75 or 85% of them didn't have what it takes. And this is where it gets dangerous for society. Our military is so talented. They are so good that that military force can accomplish almost anything that our country asks in most circumstances. But there could be a day coming, God forbid, that we need every able-bodied person in America who can fight a war to fight the next big one. And here's what I'm convinced. If that day comes, I'm not sure the American society has what it takes to be able to make that transition. The leap is just far too big for most people to be able to make. Don't get me wrong. We will always see the best of the best show up and decide they want to test themselves and they want to serve and they're going to try out at the ultimate levels. But unfortunately, many of them just weren't raised in the kind of environment that gave them the skills necessary. They didn't have the duty, they didn't have the drive, they didn't have the discipline, they didn't have the physical abilities because they weren't using those skills when they were growing up. And when it came time and they needed them, they just didn't have them. This is the age-old dilemma of society and soldiers, or taking a citizen and turning them into a warrior. And every day that that gap gets wider is a day that becomes more dangerous for the worst case scenario in America's future. So Maybe you're watching this video and you've never served in the military, have no intentions of serving in the military. What you can do for yourself, for your family, for your country, and this won't hurt in any of them, is to just refine a sense of duty, to work on your personal discipline, to be the kind of guy or gal that is physically tough enough that you can handle challenges. Maybe the day comes, perhaps it never does, but maybe the day comes that the United States calls on you and needs you to serve. Be the kind of person that can make that gap if that day ever comes. Just a couple of thoughts for you on what it's like to go to war. See you next time.